Arthur Hale, one of the city's most powerful millionaires, had built an empire out of brilliance and determination, yet all his wealth felt meaningless as he watched his 6-year-old son Daniel slowly fade before his eyes. Once lively and full of laughter, Daniel had become fragile, weak, and burdened by an unexplained illness that drained the color from his cheeks and the spark from his eyes, leaving Arthur terrified and desperate, pacing hallways at night as doctors provided theories that led nowhere, offering medicines that only seemed to make Daniel worse instead of better. For months, the mansion felt less like a home and more like a silent ward filled with unanswered questions, but everything changed the day Elena arrived, a gentle, observant nanny with a calm voice, a warm smile, and an intuition that seemed almost supernatural in the way she understood children. From the moment she walked into the mansion, Daniel lifted his head for the first time in weeks, studying her with curiosity, and within days, the boy who barely had the strength to speak whispered his first laugh since falling ill, a soft but hopeful sound that made Arthur's eyes well with emotion. Elena didn't push Daniel with activities or strict routines. Instead, she spent hours simply sitting beside him, reading softly, encouraging him to take tiny sips of water, placing a hand on his forehead whenever he winced, never once treating him like a patient but like a child whose world had become frighteningly quiet. And as she spent more time with him, she noticed something no one else had, the pattern behind Daniel's sudden crashes, the moments when his energy plummeted sharply, the way his breathing grew shallow not randomly but always after he took his prescribed medicine. At first she doubted herself, questioning whether she was imagining a connection out of fear, but one evening, while Arthur was in a crisis meeting with doctors and specialists, she watched Daniel swallow his evening dose, and within 20 minutes his lips turned pale and his tiny hands began to tremble. That was when her heart raced with the realization that something was horribly wrong, something no medical professional had caught because they trusted the treatments too blindly. Curious and uneasy, Elena picked up the medicine bottle, turning it under the soft lamplight, and though everything seemed normal at first, the label, the dosage, the instructions, her instincts whispered that the danger was not in what was written but in what had been done to the bottle itself. She didn't dare accuse anyone without proof, so she quietly slipped the bottle into her apron and made her way to the mansion's kitchen, where she found Mr. Collins, the family's longtime pharmacist and household assistant, wiping down the counter. His hands froze when he saw the bottle in her grip, and though he smiled politely, Elena felt an unsettling tension hanging in the air. Something cold and sharp that the walls themselves seemed to notice. Daniel reacted strangely after this dose, she said gently, testing his reaction, watching his eyes stiffen for a split second before he replied, "Children have weak systems, it happens," but his tone, too quick, too dismissive, ignited a new certainty in her, a certainty that someone inside this mansion was hiding a terrible secret behind Daniel's supposed illness. She didn't confront him. Instead, she quietly backed away, her heart pounding, and later that night, after everyone had gone to sleep, she slipped into the study and searched the medical logs, comparing each bottle number, each date of refill, discovering a chilling inconsistency. Daniel's prescription had been changed 6 weeks earlier, on a date that matched the beginning of his steep decline. Morning brought a storm of emotions as Elena approached Arthur, who sat slumped in a chair beside Daniel's bed. She hesitated, knowing the truth might break him, but she refused to stay silent as she handed him the bottle and whispered, "I think someone is hurting your son." Arthur stared at her, confused, exhausted, but when she explained the patterns, the timings, and the discrepancies, something inside him snapped awake, a father's fury rising from deep within him. He immediately called for a private investigation, refusing to alert the household staff and risk tipping off the culprit, and as investigators examined the bottle, the horrifying truth came to light. The medicine had been tampered with, poisoned with microdoses meant to weaken Daniel slowly, undetectably, enough to make him appear terminally ill but not enough to cause immediate suspicion. When the report was placed in Arthur's trembling hands, he felt his knees weaken. Betrayal, grief, and rage warred inside him as he demanded to know who would dare harm his child, and the answer hit him harder than any business defeat ever had. Mr. Collins, the assistant he had trusted for 10 years, had been manipulating the medication, driven by twisted motives tied to inheritance, control, and a grudge against Arthur's late wife, a grudge festering for years beneath a mask of loyalty. Confronting Collins was a tempest. Arthur's voice thundered through the mansion as guards restrained the men who coldly admitted he never intended to kill Daniel quickly, only weaken him enough that Arthur, drowning in despair, would abandon his empire, leaving Collins access to financial channels he had been quietly infiltrating. The betrayal shattered Arthur, but there was no time for heartbreak. Daniel needed real treatment urgently, and as paramedics rushed him out, Elena never left his side, holding his hand during the ambulance ride, whispering to him that he was strong, that he was brave, that he would get through this. Hours passed in the hospital under the harsh glow of emergency lights, and when the doctors finally emerged with hopeful expressions, Arthur's legs nearly gave out. They said Daniel would recover now that the toxin was gone, that his body just needed time to regain strength. Relief crashed over him like a wave, and the first person he turned to was Elena, pulling her into a tight embrace, whispering, "You saved my son, you saved my whole world." Weeks later, when Daniel returned home healthier, smiling again, racing down the hallway with his old energetic spirit, the mansion was filled with a warmth it hadn't felt in months, and as Arthur watched Elena laughing with Daniel by the garden, he felt gratitude so deep he could never fully express it. The truth hidden in Daniel's medicine had shaken the Hale Empire, but it also rebuilt something stronger, a bond that proved love, intuition, and courage can overpower even the darkest betrayal. And as this powerful story finds its way to you today, remember this: sometimes the heroes are not the ones with riches or power, but the ones who quietly notice what others overlook, the ones who refuse to stay silent when something feels wrong. If this emotional journey touched your heart, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because your support helps us bring more powerful, life-changing stories like this to you, stories of courage, resilience, and truth that remind us that hope always rises in the darkest moments.